Is speaking out for the first time, 5 years after Willingham was executed for the deaths of his 3 children, and crucially, just days after Texas Governor Rick Perry removed commissioners from the scientific panel investigating whether Willingham was in fact innocent. Since Willingham's execution, at least 6 arson experts have examined the evidence and found no credible indications the fire was intentionally set. Just today, Texas Governor Rick Perry, who's up for re-election, spoke out. He's been silent now for a long time. He spoke out about removing 4 commissioners from the panel and about his confidence in the way the case was handled.
We have a system in this state that has followed the procedures, and they found this man guilty every step of the way.
Well, that touched off a brand new firestorm, and when Randy Case spoke with this key scientist who was supposed to testify before the panel, he made news, breaking news tonight. Randy Case, keeping him honest. She joins us now with what he had to say. What'd you learn?
It's getting pretty intense, Anderson, really, on both sides. I just got off the phone with Dr. Craig Byler, a renowned arson investigator who was supposed to testify, as Anderson just said, as an expert in this case. He just finished his report in August and said the fire Cameron Todd Willingham was executed for was actually not arson. Moments ago, he told me he's calling on the governor's appointees to the commission to resign and call for the reinstatement of the removed commissioners. He said it is not a matter of qualifications, but a matter of, quote, personal integrity. He said, Anderson, that it's really pretty sad that it has come to this.
We've offered the governor multiple opportunities to come on this program to talk about this. We've been covering this case for a long time. He's declined those opportunities, but he did speak out today.
He did. In Texas, the governor did come out swinging, actually, railing against Cameron Todd Willingham, who was executed in 2004 under Governor Perry's watch. Listen to what he said.
Willingham was a monster. This was a guy who murdered his 3 children, who tried to beat his wife into an abortion so that he wouldn't have those kids.
Willingham was convicted of arson homicide for setting a fire that killed his 3 little girls. Mr. Perry refused to grant Willingham a stay, even though the governor had been presented with some new evidence just before the execution that called into question Willingham's guilt. An expert had determined the fire was not arson. Now, just before tonight's show, I spoke with Willingham's stepmother about the governor's comments. Eugenia Willingham told me, quote, the governor didn't know Todd. If he did, he wouldn't have such harsh judgment. Todd was a good father who cared for his kids. And one of Willingham's final wishes, in fact, was to have his ashes spread on his children's graves. Anderson.
One of the things that the governor also talked about was that he says due process was followed in this case.
He did say that, and he's still saying that. In fact, listen to what he said about that just today.
How many courts looked at this? There were 9 federal courts that looked at this case. 9 federal courts. It was before the Supreme Court of the United States 4 times. Now, surely, Peggy, you're not saying that the Supreme Court of the United States fouled up 4 times.
So is that true?
Well, I want to be really clear here, because more than half a dozen fire investigators have said that this fire was not arson, and the courts ruled on the evidence that's now in question. The state commission was supposed to be the final word on whether or not an innocent man was put to death. It hired its own expert, Dr. Craig Byler, who we mentioned was set to testify at this critical hearing on the case when Governor Perry fired 4 members of the commission suddenly, just 48 hours before the hearing. The hearing was abruptly canceled, and tonight, Governor Perry blasted Dr. Byler's findings, saying even Willingham's own defense attorney slammed the report.
He has come to clearly believe in his guilt, and he said that study that Mr. Blyer came forward with is nothing more than propaganda by the anti-death penalty people across this country.
Dr. Byler told me tonight, quote, I have no connection with any anti-death penalty groups. My report is a scientific investigation with no political agenda. And we should point out, Dr. Byler hasn't commented publicly on this matter until now, right here on 360. And he didn't hold back tonight. He told me, quote, the governor's actions in making appointments to the commission represent a severe conflict of interest and is unethical. He should have recused himself from any appointments to that commission, because now it gives the appearance he's using his political clout to protect himself against any incrimination by the commissioner.
All right, Randy, appreciate that. A lot to talk about now. Governor Perry is weighing in with us now. Colleen McCain-Nelson, editorial writer for the Dallas Morning News. And on the phone, Cameron Willingham's stepmother, Eugenia. Eugenia, Governor Perry today said that your stepson was a monster. Those were the words he used, who murdered his kids. And he said that he was a guy who tried to beat his wife into an abortion. What's your response?
My son was not a monster. I take offense in that. He was a loving father. He and his wife did have a stormy relationship, but he didn't try to beat her into an abortion.
Did he physically abuse his wife?
Yes, he did. But she physically abused him. It was fair play, I guess you'd call it.
Colleen, at the end of the day, did the governor give a clear answer on why he removed 4 commission members when he did?
Well, he said that this is just standard operating procedure, nothing political to see here, just move along, that he can appoint and reappoint people as he sees fit. But the timing is terrible, and regardless of his motives, his actions have had a chilling effect on this important investigation, and he's managed to delay or possibly even derail this investigation. So he hasn't really given a good explanation of why it was imperative to swap out all of these commission members 48 hours before the
The governor also said that Cameron in the death chamber, quote, with his last breath, spewed what the governor called an obscenity-laced tirade against his wife. Is that true?
He did. He also professed his innocence to the very end. But just because Cameron Todd Willingham wasn't necessarily a Boy Scout, just because he had committed crimes in his past, it doesn't absolutely guarantee that he killed his family. And what Governor Perry hasn't explained is what he knows that fire science experts don't. And he's basically saying, I'm certain about this, without offering any explanation of what convinces him to be certain.
Eugenia, this next question is to you. The governor also said that his own defense attorney believed he was guilty. Do you know that to be true? And also, did his wife think he was guilty?
She didn't think he was guilty during the trial. She turned on him 2 weeks before he was executed and asked permission to visit him for the first time. And he was excited. He wanted to see her thoughts. And when she got there, she blasted him. That's the reason of the reaction he had at the execution. She was the only one that actually viewed his execution.
And to the defense attorney, do you know if his defense attorney believed he was guilty?
Yes, he did. He did not have any defense. That's the reason he told me his trial was a joke. That was his exact words. It was a big joke.
Colleen,
he didn't have any defense.
Colleen, the governor has said, well, look, multiple courts looked at this and looked at the evidence. The point a lot of these forensic investigators are now saying, multiple ones are saying, is that what was thought to be good forensic science in arson investigations back then in the 80s and 90s is now no longer seen as good. In fact, it's shown that that a lot of the stuff they thought was true in arson investigations is not true.
Absolutely. And in fact, just as a lot of advances in technology have resulted in exonerations related to DNA evidence, new advances in arson science could result in the same thing. We could see some arson cases being overturned because we know more about fires, we know more about arson, and so what experts thought to be true in the past doesn't necessarily hold up anymore.
I appreciate your time tonight, Colleen McCain-Nelson, and also Cameron's mom, Eugenia. I appreciate you calling in tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll continue to follow this case. A lot happening in it.